don't think so much. You might overlook the obvious. You might see past all that you've achieved. Don't move so quickly. You might overstep the moment. You might miss all the beauty you're creating. One can wake up, get dressed, walk out the door thinking that they're on their way to a someday achievable, brilliant finale, and simultaneously fail to understand the miracle of the now. It's in what you're doing now, who you're helping now, what you're becoming now. Your miracle is now. And you can't see your impact because it materializes behind you as your back is to it and you step toward those distant horizons. There's a direct link between always wanting to be better and never feeling like you're good enough. If you don't properly compartmentalize the two, you'll always be chasing something you can't obtain while you walk right by the brilliance you're piecing together in real time. That carrot just outside of reach for the runner on the treadmill. And I'm not saying your goals and aspirations aren't incredible. I'm not saying you aren't one in a million. I'm not saying you won't shock, change, add unparalleled value to the world. No, that's most certainly possible. But I'm saying you're doing that now, too. Like, right now. You're not on a trajectory to someday be one in a million. You are one in a million on a trajectory to live life fully, to further expand, explore, as you should. But let's not lose perspective along the way. It's hard to watch someone who has changed your life feel like they're not good enough. It just is. It's hard to watch something so beautiful feel like they must first evolve before they're worthy. And it's like, sure, I get it. We celebrate visible, tangible successes, the innovators and CEOs, world-class talents, people who have built the present and will build the future. But notice, there are no ceremonies for the ones who lift others up every day, who lead by example, who show up again and again when they're going through their own private hell. There are no record books for them. But I'll tell you what, if there were, you'd be there. And if I could remind you of that every day, I would. The small things you do not feel so small to those around you. In fact, your mere existence changed my life, and I know I'm not alone, not even close to alone. It's a tough world we live in. Tough enough to bring even the strongest amongst us to our knees. Yet you think you're flawed and insufficient. I ask, compared to what? A lot of people would have folded a long time ago. Wouldn't be fighting for a dream or standing for anything. A lot of people wouldn't be giving so much of themselves. Again, I continuously run into this question. Why is it that the ones who are changing the world, not with their social media follower count, but with their actions, so often fail to see their own value? Perhaps they're using the wrong measuring sticks. Maybe their sights are set so high they don't realize all that they're making better along the way. Maybe they don't know that every soul they light up puts in motion a ripple effect, an exponential value add. But if you just lift your head up and look around, you would see quite the ripple effect. You would see quite the chain reaction. You would see that you are not just working towards change, you are actively embodying it. Don't be the only one who can't see that. Why do I say this? Why spend the time? Well, because one, I think it's not something we say enough. The ones who truly change us or make our lives better need to be told that. There's just something tragic about keeping it to ourselves. And two, because you don't give yourself enough credit. You're blind to the path you've traveled and the dragons you've slayed. I couldn't believe my ears when you apologized for being weak. Weak? Weak is retreating. Weak is being selfish. Weak is forfeiting your gifts. Those descriptors are antithetical to who you are. And sure, we all slip into them once in a while. We're human beings. We all endure our valleys of despair. But to fight with everything you have on your way back up, that is not weakness. That's courage. I think our definitions might be crossed here. See, I'm a firm believer that absolutely we have to be our own greatest critics, no doubt. But the value in that, the expectation, is that it's coupled with a commitment to also be our own greatest allies. Are you? Are you your own greatest ally? Because sometimes I'm not so sure. Do you see how much light you bring to the world? How much better people around you are when you enter a room and smile, when you listen to them and their problems, when you inspire them by making decisions with so much at stake, when you don't let the hardship of your past keep you down. And I know how hard it's been. I'm telling you this because maybe you don't know. Maybe you talk so much about what the future will be and how big and incredible things will become that you overlook the parallel worlds you are creating with each step along the way, a pilgrim, a wanderer in search of an impact you are already making. So look, keep your head up and your expectations high. You will do remarkable things. But don't be afraid to look over your shoulder and see that you already are. Don't beat yourself up for not yet arriving at an imaginary place while you change the world along the way. Give yourself the same grace and compassion you would give to me. Allow that for yourself. Don't think so much that you overlook the obvious. You just might see past all that you've achieved. And don't move so quickly that you overstep the moment. You might just miss all that beauty that you're creating. This isn't a pep talk. This is me holding up a mirror so that you can see the value add. You're not merely an IOU to some future self. You are all the people around you whose lives you make better every day, the lives you touch by being you. What's up, guys? Eddie here. And before we jump into the next chapter, just a quick note. So, as many of you know, every single video that I've ever put on this channel has been created with the intent of building momentum in your life. If you want something physical to anchor that momentum, we've created the brand AGNS, or Always Grateful, Never Satisfied, for that exact reason. Athletic apparel that embodies the very ideas and concepts I talk about every day. Because you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we've created a code for this exclusive community, YWW20. You can use that on the website, agns.lifestyle, or right under this video on YouTube. All this stuff is there in the shop. Again, code YWW20 gets you 20% off the entire store. It's a great way to support the channel and also elevate your journey. Let it be a reminder to keep showing up. Appreciate your time. Always grateful, never satisfied. On to the next. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it. This was written by the author of Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. And what he's referring to is a cognitive bias known as the focusing illusion. Pretty basic idea. It means that we elevate the importance of things that we think about while ignoring other aspects of our lives. By thinking about something, it suddenly matters more to us. And while it's easy to interpret this disconnect between our thoughts and reality as alarming, there's also an opportunity here to use this to our advantage, right? To further become the captain of your ship. I've heard my entire life, think positive thoughts. We all have. But there's value in understanding why that's true, right? Otherwise, it just feels like a meaningless ritual. So Kahneman talks about a study with college students where they were asked about their overall level of happiness, and then they were asked about their dating lives. And the answers they gave, there were really, there was no correlation between the two answers. But when the order of the questions were switched, when the students were asked about their dating lives first, and then their overall happiness, the correlation between the two answers increased. Right? The answer they gave about their overall happiness mirrored, however, they said their dating lives were, at least to a much greater extent. Why? Well, because dating became the variable or the framework that they used to measure their overall happiness, even though perhaps they didn't know it, right? But by focusing on it, it became more relevant. It bled into other aspects of life, right? You get what you focus on. It's that simple. And the truth is, as I mentioned earlier, nothing is as important as we think it is. Everything is magnified, kind of blown out of proportion in our minds. So the question is, why not use that as an advantage? Why not let that become our strength, realizing that if simply thinking about something can change the trajectory of how we view the world, it can be transformative to simply minimize the bad thoughts and focus on good ones. Have you ever thought about how delicate the line we walk between not caring enough and caring too much? For example, to feel like existence is pointless, right? Everything's bad. There's no reason to try. That makes it hard to get off the couch, right? Lacking that purpose. But then, on the entire other end of the spectrum, to feel like life is riding on every step, to feel like we're not allowed the flexibility or leeway to make mistakes. Life matters too much. That also severely limits how we live, just in a different way. And so I want to explore, how do we find that middle ground? How do we find that picture in our heads that puts us right where we need to be? The idea that, of course, today is important. Life is a beautiful opportunity to extract meaning from the world around you, to build something that matters. But it's also no checklist. It's no standardized test. No, it's more of a game. We shouldn't be walking around with the weight of the world on our shoulders because that doesn't help anyone. Let's face it, life is just not all that serious. As a good friend of mine, Steve, always says to me, we are sacks of meat on a rock floating through an infinite, ever-expanding universe, and nothing matters. I've heard him say that a million times, right? Let's go. Let's do it. Nothing matters. Let's make it happen. And I 100% get it. It's a check against the idea that the world will collapse if we screw up. That if we drop the ball, it's over. Kind of pointing to the fact that the only way to truly lose in life is to look back and realize we were too scared to live. And so in that context, absolutely, I'm on the nothing matters bandwagon. But here's the deal about this video or podcast episode, however you're consuming it. In a perfect world, it's a buffet, not a menu. It's an opportunity for you to think, to reflect, to pick and choose the pieces here that will help move you along. Because after all, we're all walking different paths. So how could one person present a one-size-fits-all solution to anything? No, the goal is to understand the framework by which we operate. To understand that the thoughts we think have a monumental impact on how we live. And so if you find yourself on the uninspired side of things, know that there's not a problem with you. You just haven't found a path that lights you up. You are perhaps focusing on the wrong things, right? Not leaving space for the right ones. And if you find yourself constantly smothered by the weight of your own expectations, if every little step, decision, or movement matters too much, know that you are perhaps creating adversaries that don't exist. That you are right where you need to be, but you have to let yourself live, experience life. One of the most beautiful Viktor Frankl quotes I've ever heard, he says, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. There is so much power packed into this idea. It's like when you look around and see the outside world backing you into a corner, dictating to you how things should be. Remember that you don't take orders from the external world. You create the external world. When all you see is negative, when all you feel are reasons to turn back, when the good in life is hiding away, reach out and find the positive. The one thing that can pick you up and carry you forward. And look, I'm not advocating that we live in this state of delusion. I'm not saying close your eyes, cover your ears, and pretend everything's great. I'm saying every day, every situation provides at least one thing you need to be closer to where you want to be. And it just so happens that we're not always inclined to see that one thing, that solution. It just so happens that we need to become aware, to remind ourselves. So this is your reminder to look for it. Your reminder to focus on the things that lift you up, that breathe life into you, not the things that keep you down. And so here's to finding that sweet spot, right? Walking the line between Viktor Frankl's meaning starts with you and my old pal Steve's mantra, nothing matters, so go live your life. This is not a race. You're not being graded on the outcome here. You're giving yourself permission to experience that jolt you get when you open your eyes as the sun comes up each morning, knowing that how you're about to spend your time will be a product of the game you designed. A game in which, yes, you'll feel lost from time to time. You'll lose that North Star every so often. You'll question the journey you're on. But guess what? When you take responsibility for the circumstance, you also empower yourself to right the ship. You're at the wheel, playing the game of life as it was meant to be played on your terms. If it does not serve you, let it go. If it doesn't help you, move beyond it. As Kahneman states, our thoughts grossly over-exaggerate that reality on the ground, so let that framework emphasize your passion, your strength, and your dreams, not the inverse. What we focus on, we get. So believe in yourself with such conviction that those around you look on and wonder what gave you the right to see those things. What made you think it was okay to believe in that which you believe? You never got a permission slip in the mail. You never stumbled upon a permit that granted you access to the good things in life. No, you just came to understand the game and how it's played. You came to see that we have options. The option to find the bad and the option to find the good. The choice to see why you can't and the choice to see why you will. That's what will separate you from both your past self and those looking on from afar. See, change is never a product of magic, as people seem to think. No, most often, it's taking on the challenge of seeing what is not yet there. Stepping into the arena with possibility, with the upside. So today, see it. Focus on it, lock it in, and don't let go. With everything you have, all that's within you, don't let go. For everything tomorrow can be, for everything you have always been, don't let go. Don't you dare reach for your pocket, I told myself. In fact, take that phone and go put it in another room. Shut your internet off, set your devices to do not disturb, and think. Please, think. You are losing yourself to distraction. Or as Cal Newport puts it, we're in a world that demands more thought, more deep work than ever before, while we all simultaneously become more and more incapable of that focus. And to me, it feels like more than a chuckle at our outrageous screen time or a self-deprecating joke about how reliant we are on our phones, the dopamine hit. I think it's antithetical overall to what we need, to where we find our purpose. Which is a dichotomy that's frustratingly true with so many things. Like that balance. For me to have a digital business that means so much to me, that I'm so proud of, but also tiptoeing around that same digital world like it's a hungry lion capable of devouring me. That's a real feeling. It's water that's foundational for life, but in too large a quantity will kill. It's the sun that, while integral and responsible for this planet as we know it, also has no problem ending, anything that's too openly exposed to its rays, to its heat. There's always a sweet spot between too much and not enough. Right? That happy medium, that intersection is why we're all here. Because when I don't take time to deeply think, when I lose the big picture, I remain in a cycle of routine. And sometimes that's great, right? Morning routine is great. I don't really have to think about it. I'm programmed. Things like driving a car, as Duhigg explains in The Power of Habit. Your foot stepping on the gas. It's involuntary, and thank God for that. But one must be able to step outside that loop and ask the big picture questions. We have to make time to at least roughly chart the course. And it'll change. Life will present its obstacles, but we'll have at least parsed out what matters and what doesn't. When life is all habit and reflex, when you've lost the ability to examine the self because 1 minute alone with your thoughts is agonizing, well, you won't be able to see past the surface of who you are and what you're capable of. I want to be clear here, this is not me complaining about perhaps the most prosperous society ever to exist. This is me saying, there are some dangers that we way too easily overlook. That when you outsource your thinking, you outsource your future. And it's not hard to fall into that trap. I just referenced the book Deep Work a few minutes ago. I think it's one of the most important books someone can read in this day and age. Cal Newport talking about separating ourselves from distraction. And I remember the day I first listened to that book, I was sick, so I wasn't on my usual run. I was walking, and because of that, I felt this urge to, as the book was playing, to reach into my pocket and check for notifications. And it really was eye-opening. It's like we are scared to completely immerse ourselves in solitude. But solitude is where we uncover so much. Silence is where we hear what our souls have to say. It's where we understand who we are. My favorite Joseph Campbell quote, "The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek." And man, I hate to say it, but I think being alone, even for a short period of time, is that monster lurking in the cave. The one we're scared to confront, even though it's what we need. Solitude is the demon we are consistently masking in a constant influx of media and small talk and DMs and emails. That stuff has its value, but it's not real. In the sense that I find it disconnected from purpose. So here's something that I've been doing, and I would suggest that you give it a try. It's been certainly helpful in my life. And start small, even if it's 15 minutes, but take a walk by yourself. No phone. And it's challenging at first because, you want to be consuming something, even if it's, educational, valuable, still, right? No phone. Solitude. Think about life. Think about who you are. Think about what you've always wanted and where your current reality aligns. Think about how much you have and how lucky you are. Think about any or all of these things, but think. Let your mind go where, amidst the push and pull of life, you don't often let it wander. For example, some thoughts from my walk today. Some of it random, sporadic noise, some of it more valuable than others, but all of it valuable because the process in its entirety is valuable. I spent some time thinking about the week ahead, the things I'm excited about and how to prepare for them, and realized one of them I didn't want to do. I then had that debate with myself, well, do I not want to do it because it doesn't align with my goals or because it makes me uncomfortable? Came to the conclusion that I think it's the latter, so it's staying in my schedule, but I'll reassess. I thought about Florida. I consistently think about how lucky I am to be down here after living in so many cold places. It's just such a beautiful environment and, one that I don't take for granted. I thought about a statement I just heard from a professional athlete after his surgery, talking about how hard it was on him, but that he would rise from the ashes and he would have the best year of his life. And, my mind went to one of the most important rules of leadership, that it's not about you or your rise or fall, right? To lead is to make it about the team, about the overall goal. And how grateful I was to come across that video, to see that and really dissect it. Sometimes the best ways we learn is by seeing what not to do, right? And I'll take that with me. I'll take that understanding with me on my own journey. Last thing I remember, I thought about some of the books I've been consuming. I've taken in an insane amount of books over the years, but I practically stopped reading physical books, right? And now I consume mostly on Audible or other audiobook methods. Made me wonder whether the value is equivalent, how much that varies from person to person, maybe something to research later, right? That's all I remember as I sit here now. But the point is, this is stuff that if I don't immerse myself in solitude and break through the barrier of boredom, I don't get to. And maybe you go through a week where you don't find much. But as the saying goes, right, one idea, one concept, one epiphany can truly change the dynamic of your life. It could change everything, right? There are answers just beyond the realm of distraction we operate in. Some of them pertain to trivialities like the audiobooks and the cold front. Some of them pertain to your goals and your development, who you are, where you're going, and how you'll get there. As Newport says, to simply wait and be bored has become a novel experience in modern life. And while his emphasis and focus is primarily on work and creating an environment to be productive, I want to suggest that it's not only our work that needs saving, but ourselves. We can't lose touch with what matters most. We can't become so shallow in our thoughts and our actions that the beauty remains buried away. There is something in you that's untapped, unfinished, raw talent or desire. There are pieces of you that need to be assembled, and if left alone, will wither away, unremarkably, quietly, and probably without your noticing. So my ask is that you think of this as more than, me cheering on long walks. It's not about the walks, right? It's about time alone with yourself and what that opens up for you. It's about recognizing the spaces we need to carve out from the outside world, so that when we re-enter the outside world, we know who we are. We understand where we're headed. We don't go where the wind blows. We are able, as the saying goes, to adjust our sails to get to our destination. All you need is more time with you. If you're negotiating with yourself, if you know there's another level and you need a reason to give more, I'm going to give you that reason right now. Start with the understanding that someone, somewhere would give anything to be in your shoes in the present moment, to have your health, to have that light in their eyes, to be staring out at a world filled with possibility in front of them. Just to be gifted what you consider your baseline, just a day in your shoes would be miraculous. But that's a bold statement, so let's unpack it. I want to share a story with you. It's another one associated with the world I've been living lately. And it's my fitness and entrepreneurial journey that I'm on. And I know I've drawn from that well plenty recently. So hopefully there's no fatigue there. But look, I only feel good when I write about what I'm going through, what I'm living. And so I'm inclined to take you into this day-to-day chaos I'm navigating. Fun chaos, exciting chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Well, it was mid-December. My day started with a screenshot from my mom, who was watching my latest episode and looking at some of the YouTube comments. Because it doesn't matter how big or small this podcast is, we know Mama and Papa Pinero are going to be right there cheering from the sideline. It's a blessing that I certainly don't take for granted. Right. And so this screenshot was of a comment left under a video. They're East Coast time, so I hadn't even gotten to look yet. And normally I paraphrase things like this, but it's just so powerful and critical to the point that I'm going to read it in full. Now, they say some nice things about the podcast. Obviously, this is not a humble brag, right? Hang with me to the end, you'll get it. Here's what the note said. It said, I don't really know how to say this cleanly, so I'm just going to say it the only way I can right now. These last months have felt like everything in my life is shrinking at the edges. Like I'm watching myself move through a chapter that's quieter, heavier, and fading faster than I ever expected. It's strange when you start feeling your days get shorter. When morning light feels borrowed, and every word you leave behind feels like it might matter a little more than it used to. Your work has been one of the few things I've held on to through all of this. There's a warmth in what you create, something I can't really explain, like Christmas in July. Something that shouldn't exist, something unexpected. But it shows up anyway, and somehow becomes the one thing that makes the cold feel a little less sharp. I don't have many things that feel like that anymore. In a way, you probably don't realize you become like a brother to me, not in some dramatic or poetic sense, just in the simple, steady way you've shown up through your words when the people in my actual life couldn't. Something in what you say feels like it's talking to me, not at me, and when you're hurting, that difference means everything. I'm not doing well. My body's failing, and the end feels closer lately. Closer in a way I can't ignore anymore. I'm trying to handle it with whatever grace I can manage. But there are days where it feels like the ground is giving out under my feet, and still, your voice, your message, the things you put out into the world, they've carried me through the moments I didn't think I'd make it past. If I fade from here someday soon, I just want you to know you made a difference. You gave hope to someone you never met. You helped me hold on a little longer, and in these last narrowing days, that has meant more than I can say without falling apart. Some people are in your life for a heartbeat, but leave an echo that stays. You are one of those echoes for me. That's the note. And it came during a time when I felt down on myself, right? When I was throwing a little pity party for circumstances so small in comparison that, it's laughable. I was mad at my progress or lack thereof, impatient with my results, so locked into an irrelevant jail of my own making that I'd lost the forest for the trees, as the saying goes. That message corrected my perspective very quickly. Eric came by at 7:30 that morning, usual time for our workout, and I'm reading this to him as we're stretching and warming up, and just kind of losing it, trying to get the words out for obvious reasons. It's beautifully said, it's emotional, powerful. We stopped stretching for a second, and Eric reminded me of the big picture, right? That this is bigger than me, that it's bigger than us. Right? We're trying to change the world. We're trying to help as many people as we can before our time comes. Right? It was a powerful conversation and just brought more reflecting. Right? To be totally transparent, sometimes I'm embarrassed to admit that I oscillate between my true why and my ego, right? Sometimes it's healthy, and sometimes you get lost in the weeds. Always grateful, never satisfied. That push and pull moves mountains, but you can't get stuck in the never satisfied part. I know why I'm here, and I take incredible pride in that, but the why sometimes butts heads with my ambition. It's a combination of incredible people and outside events that pull me back out, right? That ground me. So the workout that day was a physical fitness test, where a lot of 2-minute timed exercises, and then at the end, a 30-minute uphill run on the treadmill, and you just sort of calculate the distance that you can go in 30 minutes. And I remember doing that run and having 5 minutes left, and of course, battling, right? That's the point, fighting for air, pushing. And I'll never forget Eric simply reminding me about the note. And he says, these next 5 minutes we're gonna dedicate to that note, to the author of that note, to someone who right now is going through it. Carry the discomfort for them. Carry the pain for them, because you can. You're in a position to put in the work, and that capability creates a sense of duty. What a shame, what a waste, what a tragedy it would be to not give your all in this moment. Do it for the ones who aren't able. Pick them up and take them to the finish line. And here's where we bring this home, right? Next time you find yourself searching for a why, wondering if you should, rationalizing that, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's not really worth it, who cares? I want you to close your eyes and think of the gift before you. I want you to visualize your heart pumping blood through your body, your lungs taking that air in, the sound of life all around you, creating a symphony, a soundtrack for you to break barriers and triumph. And I want you to remember that someone would give anything to have what you have in this moment. And so you push. You honor them with every step you take into the darkness, by pushing yourself, by expanding your own limits and nurturing your own potential. In doing that, you're giving something beautiful to the world. Something that transcends money and politics and keeping up with the Joneses. You're making the world better by making you better. You're pouring into life by pouring into your greatness. So go. Fight harder than you've ever fought before. Ask more of yourself than you've ever asked. For yourself and for those who can't. Leave nothing on the field or the track, nothing in the classroom, in the office, in the studio. Leave nothing in any arena you step into. See, the world is yours. It's always been yours. I'm just asking you to open your eyes and stop running from that fact. And instead partner with it. March with it. Own it. Because excellence will exist in this world with or without you. But to find a reason to help move it forward, that's what you're all about. That's what life is all about. Sometimes I ask myself a question. It feels dramatic at first. But the longer I sit with it, the more practical it becomes. It's this. If today were my last day, what would I feel? And there's a lot packed into that question, right? What would I regret? What would I be proud of? Who would come to mind immediately? What would suddenly feel important, and what would fall away the moment time became real? And every time I run through that thought experiment, I notice the same thing. The answers are never complicated. In fact, they're actually very clear, which brings to light another uncomfortable truth, necessarily. Because if we already know what would matter in the end, then why do so many of our days look nothing like it? Why is there such a delta between what we know would make us happy and how we live? And not necessarily in dramatic ways, right? Sometimes in subtle ones, in the way we rush, in the way we default, and how easily we trade meaning for momentum. Now, this is not a rant about the world. It's not a complaint about society or, an opportunity to shake your fist at the sky. It's a mirror. Because most of us, we don't lose ourselves all at once, right? We lose ourselves quietly by living in ways that don't leave a mark. There have been seasons in my life, plenty, right? And there will probably be more down the road, where from the outside everything looked fine. I was doing what I was supposed to. I was hitting the marks and keeping pace, and nothing was technically wrong, right? But hindsight's 20/20, and nothing was particularly memorable either. And that's the thing worthy of note, right? Sometimes the danger is not failure, it's not falling, it's not some monumental catastrophe. It's forgettability. It's like blending into the background in our own lives because the background is safe. Can't screw up when you're not on stage. It's hard to fall when you're just standing still, right? That's safety. But years later, when I think back to those seasons, there's nothing that stands out there. There's no texture or edge. There's just, existing. Days blending into weeks and months dissolving into years. And you think about this, and that's when it hits. It's like when we blend in too well, even our own memories lose contrast. We don't fall off course. We drift. Taken by an unremarkable current into nothingness. When you imagine looking back on your life someday, what do you actually think you'll remember? Because I'm guessing it won't be the things that fit neatly. You probably won't remember the meetings. You won't remember the routines you never question. You'll remember moments. Specific moments. Moments where something shifted, where you chose differently, where you stepped off the path you were supposed to be on. And those moments tend to have something in common. They didn't feel normal at the time. They felt uncertain. They felt uncomfortable. They felt a little strange or out there. There was that feeling in your stomach like, oh man, this deviates from everything I've done in the past. I hope this is okay. I hope it works out. And that initial sensation, I've learned, is not a deterrent. It's a key. It's a sign. It's a green light. This morning I was laying in bed half awake, listening to music as the day started to come into focus. And it wasn't necessarily to, be productive. The goal wasn't to motivate myself. I just wanted to be present. And a song came on, acoustic, piano. It's a pretty niche song by Owl City. It's called Be Brave. And there's a line in it that stopped me cold. It gave me this feeling, right? Like, this matters. And I'm not sure why it matters, but it matters. And I spent some time thinking about it. The line was, "Ain't life beautiful and strange?" One of those lines that hits you before you can explain it. And the reason it hit me wasn't because it was poetic or beautiful to hear. It's because I somehow knew it was accurate. See, we tend to treat strange as a problem, right? Strange, something to fix, something to avoid. If someone acts out of character, we say they're being strange. If life doesn't go as planned, we call it strange, and usually not kindly. So I look it up. Strange, unusual, or surprising in a way that's unsettling or hard to understand. Okay, check. Then I looked up beauty, something that evokes admiration, meaning, a deep appreciation. And it clicked. Those things aren't opposites, they're partners, they need each other. Without strangeness, beauty has no depth. Without strangeness, beauty's decorative. It's safe, it's forgettable. The things that matter most in life, whether it's love, growth, time, creativity, identity, they're beautiful because they are strange. They're out there, they're different. They deviate from the norm. They resist control. They don't come with instructions. They don't make sense until later. That's not a flaw. That's the point entirely. You know, when you look back on your life, what matters won't be what followed the blueprint. It won't be what blended in seamlessly, what could exist in the shadows, behind the curtain. What matters in the end is what dared to be different, what was beautiful and strange. That's not poetry, that's memory. Think about it. The moments that stay with you, the moments that still feel alive when you recall them, they aren't the ones that made sense. They were the moments where you stepped into uncertainty, where you trusted something you couldn't fully justify, where you chose honesty over approval. And at the time, that may have felt reckless. Again, referencing that feeling in your stomach, a little alarming. You start to feel like, wow, there are things that can go wrong here. And looking back, you understand those moments, well, they were essential. But here's where we get it wrong, because we know this intuitively. We know that what lasts is what stands out. And yet, we spend so much of our lives trying to recreate what already exists, trying to fit into templates, trying to smooth out our edges, check our boxes, trying to look normal. But normal doesn't survive memory. Different does. Strange does. I'm a believer that life isn't meant to be copied, it's meant to be shaped. And the raw material you're given isn't certainty, it's absurdity. It's a life that's so complex and feels so beyond us. Sometimes it's hard to even begin with what to make of it. It's unexpected turns, unanswered questions, moments that don't fit the narrative you planned. Turns out they're not interruptions or detours. They are clay. They are the way. And the task isn't to eliminate it, it's to have the courage to mold yourself from it. I feel like every meaningful life I've ever admired has the same fingerprint. It's never perfection, never predictability, it's always originality. We don't celebrate with statues people that blended in, that did nothing extraordinary, that didn't push themselves out of the box. No, it's a willingness to step into what didn't quite make sense yet, which is heavy as you're making that step. It's not lost on me that the things that mean the most are the scariest in the moment. The things that call to us simultaneously terrify us. It's like the cost of admission. You want the most out of this life? Fine. You have to be willing when you step up to that line, your knees shake and your palms sweat, to step forward regardless. It's an acceptance that confusion isn't a sign you're lost. It's often a sign you're early. And as time goes by, there emerges this certain kind of peace. I guess it only shows up in hindsight, right? It's not the peace of comfort, it's the peace of alignment. The peace that comes from knowing you didn't betray yourself. The closest I've ever been to heaven wasn't in moments of ease. It was in moments where I chose something true. Before I knew it would work, before it was popular, before it was safe, before it was understood. Moments no one else could see, but I could. I heard a quote about 10 years ago by Nietzsche that I've held close to my heart every single day of my life. Those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who couldn't hear the music. Everything worthwhile is crazy before it's built. Everything that matters starts from nothing. What an absurd notion that is. But see, an abnormal or strange life isn't reckless. It's more intentional. It's choosing depth over display, creation over imitation. An abnormal life is seeing strange as an invitation. Those are the parts that give your life texture, meaning, again, memory. So again, place yourself in that situation, looking back on your life, when all is said and done. The highs, the lows, the peak moments. The parts of your life that mattered probably won't be the ones that looked right. It'll be the moments that felt true. The ones that didn't quite fit, that scared you a little. The ones you didn't understand at the time. What mattered in the end is that which existed out in the fringes. It's that which was beautiful and strange. So maybe the point isn't to escape life's absurdity, but to let it shape you. To stop trying to blend in with a world that forgets itself. No, live a life of courage. One that will survive as a memory. One, however many years down the road, you'll smile on, knowing you could have taken the easy road so many times, but that wasn't you. You were willing to pay the price, to step out of line, to do what you knew to be true, even when it scared you. 'Cause ain't life beautiful and strange? Stand up. I know you're tired. I know things aren't perfect. Maybe far from. I know what's before you seems larger than life. All of that can be true. I'm telling you to stand tall as you push through because you're capable. I'm telling you, endure with an exclamation point. I'm telling you that the hellscape before you is an opportunity to make a statement. I have a little anecdote for you. Another one of those examples of fleeting moments acting as doorways to something greater. Is a little piece of code to understanding life in totality. So, a little bit of background. I'm training for a High Rocks event coming up here in Houston. Something a little bit different. It's fun, it's challenging. One of those things that, makes it special is the intensity. You have to really push yourself when you're maxed out, when you're well into zone 5. It asks a lot of you. And so, my trainer adjusted the next 6 weeks of our training to focus on just that type of interval intensity. And the other day we were in the gym doing some of those high intensity lifting circuits. This particular circuit had deadlifts, squat to shoulder press, weighted lunges, and you repeat it 5 times. But here's the kicker, right? Here's the thing. After each of those 5 circuits, he'd put the treadmill to a 10-degree incline, set the speed to 7.5, and you have to run for 2 to 2.5 minutes, which I found out quickly is a special kind of hell when your body feels exhausted like that. First 2 were great, middle 2 sucked. Last one, I felt my soul leave my body on that treadmill, and that's what I want to talk about, right? I say all that because something amidst the chaos happened that I didn't even notice at the time. But we got some footage of the workout, and watching it back after, it brought me to tears. Here's the clip.
16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stand up, buddy, stand up. Walk that off, walk that off, walk that off. Stand up, walk it off. Stand up. Do not go over. Do not go over, stand up. Yeah, take a lap, take a lap.
So you probably noticed him repeatedly telling me to stand up, right? Over and over. I was maxed out, right? Total body shutdown. And I wanted to, my instinct was to lay down or lean on something. Pretty normal. And he's kind of following me. And he's not saying, hey, you're so special, buddy. Or, wow, good for you. That was hard. Which is probably what my ego wanted to hear. But nope. He told me what I needed to hear, which was stand the hell up. This is about more than simply getting through a workout. It's about how you get through it. Compose yourself. Pick your head up. Act like you've been there before. See, we all have these moments. Sure, sometimes in the gym or when we're physically exerting ourselves, but I think most of the time outside the weight room. Because this is life, and life is hard. Life demands a lot of us. It hurts. And this was a reminder that not only are you capable of overcoming, you're strong enough to stand tall in the face of all that's before you. And I know how rare these reminders are. They don't come every day, right? It's almost like the stars have to align. They have to be presented at the perfect time, for it to resonate with you. You have to be willing to hear it. And that was so powerful for me. I wanted to send that your way. just in case you're in a spot where you're pushing, where you are fighting like hell. And it feels like gravity's forcing you to the ground. I want to be that voice in your ear, the one that tells you, I know this sucks. And I know you have every reason to fall to your knees, but stand up. Because you can. Because you're strong enough to do that. And if you have to give yourself a minute, do it. Take time to sit with it, process it, think and feel. Take that breath and stand tall. Proud of who you are, what you've done, all that you've overcome. See, life is not about running from things, it's about facing them. That day was a powerful reminder that how you face them matters just as much. Do you trust yourself? Are you confident enough in your own 2 feet to carry you through? Are you existing? Or are you putting an exclamation point on the moment? The exclamation point that the moment deserves, that your progress deserves, that you deserve. Because this moment is yours. And no, the goal is not perfection. It can't be. It never will be. The goal is to take the road that few are willing to take, to find gratitude in the suffering to which that journey is necessarily linked. Again, life is hard. The best life has to offer is even harder. But the only thing that trumps all that is the resilience of the human spirit, a willingness to endure, to face what's before you with courage. And so for the final time, I will remind you to find it within yourself to stand up, to lock in, to set free the greatness within you. You might be tired, weak, sad, hurting, operating at 40% capacity, dealing with setbacks, disappointment, loss. My friend, stand up. It's not only what you do, it's who you are. The other day, I was in a meeting for Always Grateful, Never Satisfied, with my business partners and a few others. And we were kind of talking about apparel and throwing marketing ideas around, discussing where the brand could go. It was a fun conversation. And at one point, Rose, who's kind of been consulting on this, paused and said something interesting. She looked at us and said, you know, you guys, you're on the precipice of something bigger than you think. You're doing well now, but I don't think you fully understand how close you are, right? Then she goes, if you had a gun to your head, you could figure out how to make X dollars next month. And this is over Zoom, right? And so my business partner, Freddie, some of you guys know him, he sits there and this is like the most cinematic, Scorsese-esque moment. It couldn't have gone better. He sits there for about 3 seconds, looks up and says, then someone go get a gun. And it was perfect, right? So we all laughed. But there's something there beyond the sort of cinematic nature of the exchange. There's something very true about it, right? Because the more I thought about that, the more I realized how profound the moment. That's the strange thing about human beings, right? When the pressure's real, when the stakes are high, when the moment demands it, we almost always find a way. When we have to, we become sharper, more creative, more decisive. We stop waiting and overthinking and we just go. Because we have to, because that's the standard that we set. But here's the question that's been sitting with me ever since the meeting, right? It's like, if we know we're capable of that level of urgency, if we know that version of ourselves exists, why do we only meet him when the pressure's unbearable? Why do we wait until life forces our hand? Or, until the clock is almost out before we start running? Because most of the time, thankfully, there is no quote-unquote gun to our head, right? And obviously that's metaphorical. But there is no burning platform. There is no external force screaming at us to move. There's only the quiet whisper of potential. The quiet whisper of what we could be doing, and too often we ignore it. We tell ourselves we'll start tomorrow or next month or when things calm down, when we feel ready. That's a big one. But momentum, it doesn't arrive like a gift. I've learned that the hard way. I've learned that over and over and over again. Externalities, outside forces, they don't give you momentum. You manufacture it. It is an ignition switch in your soul, created by people who decide that waiting is just no longer acceptable. It's not a thing that's gonna happen today. It's people who, realize that the biggest threat to their lives isn't failure, it's drift. Drifting through days that could have been extraordinary, or drifting through opportunities that could have changed everything. Drifting past the version of themselves they were meant to become. The truth is, the people who build remarkable lives do something very specific. They create urgency where none exists. They don't wait for that metaphorical gun. Again, they become that ignition. They light the fire themselves. There's something interesting about treating ordinary days like they matter, because they do. So can you move when no one's watching? Can you build when nothing's guaranteed? You don't need the world collapsing around you to become focused, or desperation to become disciplined. You just need a decision. That moment where you say, enough waiting, enough drifting, enough acting like time is infinite. Because one day it won't be, right? That clock will run out, and the question won't be whether you could have done it. The question will be whether you chose to act while you had the chance. So maybe the lesson from that meeting is simple. Don't wait for the moment that forces you to become who you're capable of being. Become that person now. Light the fire, create the urgency, move like the opportunity matters. Because, my friends, it does. And I'm so grateful for that convo and sort of the perspective shift it created. If someone ever tells you that you can figure it out, with a gun to your head, maybe the real question isn't where the gun is. Maybe the real question is this: why are you waiting for one? Some seasons are what we needed, but not necessarily what we wanted. Of course, this only becomes obvious after the fact. It's like, oh, you're fired from that job you hate. Still gonna hurt. You're still gonna feel the sting of rejection. You're still gonna react as though something belonging to you was snatched away by fate. At the end of the day, is it an objectively good thing? Yeah, it is. But this is too much for our brains to comprehend while the Band-Aid is being ripped off. We'll piece that puzzle together in 5 months when we realize we no longer wake up with dread. There are seasons to put your head down and live asymmetrically. meaning that whole notion of all your cups being filled no longer applies. It's for another time. This particular season is about going all in on one or two things at the expense of the others. But life is short, the chorus sings. Sure. And that's why we have to be selective about the seeds we water. In my opinion, no one reaches heights like those who commit to greatness in one particular endeavor. It's only then, once you've conquered the kingdom before you, that you're afforded the luxury of reeling all that matters back in. Or said a different way, you can have it all, just not all at once. And just being honest, being real with you, I don't even like the way that sounds coming out of my mouth. But that doesn't make it less true. Reality isn't always cute. A jack of all trades. Well, he realizes quickly there are too many trades to do anything substantial without prioritizing one or two of them. There are a lot of examples of this, but I think Kanye and his shoes are a great one. It's just simple. He became so good at music production, focusing on that one thing for so long that when it bore fruit, he was then afforded the luxury of pulling anything and everything into his orbit. Extreme example, but also applies in the micro. He doesn't get that world without the head down, produce your heart out season. Then there are seasons of exploration, of growth, of trying things. These seasons tend to be held closest to our hearts because when we're in them, we give ourselves permission for extreme transformation. We pull out the child from within us we've been carrying around and set him free. Somehow shocked to learn he still knows what's best. We shout ideas into the airwaves and see how they dance with reality. We observe how our hypotheses hold up against X's and O's, how our narratives fit into this great play of life. We learn that perhaps there's a reason in each particular season that some things become things we learn to believe in, although it's eventually understood that just because we can doesn't mean we should. Yikes. Trial and error. See, my friends, there's no such thing as bad experimentation. More is not the enemy. Immobility in the name of fear is the enemy. Because even the things that send us down rabbit holes equip us to evolve. Everything becomes data. And those little data points chart your course. In fact, a wiser man than me once said, "They are the very dots that connect looking backwards." This necessarily requires a season of falling forward. Then there are the seasons of loss. The ones where the foundations we once stood on crack beneath our feet. We're reminded of the temporary nature of this floating rock we are on, that all things end, all things go. And it forces us to see the beauty previously hidden in plain sight. Wow, I didn't see this coming. How could I be so naive, the eyes ask the brain. Well, because if you went through life constantly worried about what will stay and what will go, the transience of life would still exist and you'd be miserable. Some people suck, brother. My brain calls me brother. So smile and find the ones who don't suck. Some walls collapse, brother. Some people never find the strength to face that truth and forever weep amongst the ruins. You must learn to shake it off and become someone who merely learns to build again. You must learn that the turbulence is not a referendum on you, it's life doing what life does. It's up to you to navigate, and you can. I saw a video the other day where a man was holding an alligator in the water. And he's saying, "I love this alligator. But my friends, the alligator does not love me. It's in my arms right now because I understand how he operates. I know where to place my hands, where to position him and myself. But if I became careless, you bet this thing would kill and eat me. It's not personal, it's what alligators do. I'm sure that acquiring that expertise cost him more scratches and bruises than he'd care to talk about. Now, the caption on that video was a joke saying, "This is the story of married men and their wives," which reminded me, apparently now part of the target demographic for a joke like this, that I'm quickly approaching 40. But it also made me think the divide between that creature and our world in totality is what? They're both just fragments of nature. Life doesn't have an agenda or hold a grudge. It just requires that we learn how to navigate it. It asks we seek to understand it, being that the options here are either hold it gently in your arms or allow the damn thing to devour you. Then there are seasons of mountaintops, peaks, finish lines. In my experience, these tend to be fleeting. But the years have shown that they're more validation than anything else. The idea went from a quote on my wall to one of the more important things I've come to realize. We don't do hard things because of trophies. That line of thinking is actually inverted. The trophies remind us that we did the hard thing. The climb is why we do it. The pain reminds us that we can overcome. Footsteps in the face of doubt are proof that we're stronger than whatever the devil is whispering on that particular day. It feels good to win. It feels good to be rewarded for, blazing trails few would dare to venture down. But that feeling is a placeholder, in many ways a mirage. Picture someone spinning a basketball on their finger. The trophy is that brief millisecond where you spin the ball with your other hand to keep it moving. It says, hey, you're doing something hard. Don't let these seasons deceive you. Your purpose is what fills your heart and lifts your soul. The view just reminds you not to let go of whatever your purpose is. And so whatever season you are in, here is my ask. Take the time to appreciate it. And I know, you think that's cliche. I've been writing speeches for 11 years. Guess what? The truth lives in the cliches. Also, side note, if our ancestors have been saying the same thing for thousands of years, it's not dumb. Pay attention. There's usually something to it. If you're head down, building, because you have something to bring to the world, dive in. It's okay to put the parties and vacations and Monday night football on hold. It may actually even be the best decision you've ever made. If you're in a season of wandering, of exploration, don't treat it as less than. You're setting the trajectory for the rest of your life. Believe it or not, this is more important than the subpar PowerPoint that got you fired, not less. If you're in a season of loss, give yourself grace. I'm not saying celebrate as the door closes. Growth doesn't require emotional numbness. But I believe it does ask that we understand all that goes is merely making room for what needs to enter. And if you're on your mountaintop, enjoy it. But don't tie yourself to it. If you attach yourself to good outcomes, guess what? You will also be tied to the less than ideal outcomes. Attach yourself to what you love, to your pursuit, to meaning. The checkpoints along the way don't define you, your next step does. And there's always one more of those to take. What are you willing to endure? Because to become something more is not to react to the world, but to create a new one. yours. As my dad explained to me when I was in grade school, it's taking initiative, right? Seeing what isn't there, what's needed, and then making it happen. And while the setting certainly changed, the situation is no longer about helping around the house so I could go to the concert with my friends. Right now, as we get older, our world seems to get bigger along with us. The stakes are higher. Now it's everything I see when I open the blinds and I look out that window. It's all there. And we can have as little or as much of that as we want. But what we receive will always be directly proportional to what we're willing to endure, to how long we push forward before results arrive, how long we can carry on with the sole company of our beliefs. It's about Bezos packaging and delivering his own books from a garage. Right? Knowing it's not about today, it's about tomorrow if he can just hang on, if he can just endure. It's Tony Robbins with $20 in his bank account, knowing that has no reflection on him or what he's capable of if he can just hang on, just keep pushing. It's not that they had the ability to bring their dreams to life. A lot of people do. They had more. They had patience. They had the discipline, right, to remain calm and collected. That's nerve-wracking. That can be unsettling. They had the ability to be focused, to remove all the noise around them, the doubt that stops people before that desired payout is achieved. And one of my favorite ways to look at this concept of growth is a little anecdote about lily pads in a pond. And basically it's posed as a question, right? So the lily pads in this pond double in size every day. And by day 30, the pond is completely covered in lily pads. So then what day is it half covered? Like, that's the question. And a lot of people, instinctually, they say, oh, okay, day 30, half of 30 is 15. So on day 15, it was half covered, but that's wrong. They're doubling every day, which means the pond wasn't half covered until day 29 and only a quarter covered on day 28. And the reason that's important is because that means on day 1 through 27, those lily pads were growing, they were working, they were moving, yet they occupied less than a quarter of that pond. All that work for a result that was barely visible. And then at the very end, right, the payout becomes exponential, and that's what success is. That's what it means to pursue anything of significance. It's days, months, years of unrecognized work, of marching forward, covering ground when no one knows or cares or believes except you. That visualization is your sweet spot, but like we all know, easier said than done, right? This is an incredibly challenging thing because we get impatient and our pride starts to hurt. We become tempted to jump to something different or easier. We don't hang on long enough to hit day 28 or 29 or 30. When things really start to evolve. It's like James Clear's metaphor in Atomic Habits, right? Where you have an ice cube sitting in a room and it's freezing and you start slowly shifting the temperature up. You don't see anything going on with the ice cube. Not until you hit that 32-degree mark. But there are things happening when it goes from 26 to 27 degrees and 27 to 28 and 28 to 29. Those little molecules are moving and bouncing around. But then boom, suddenly it hits that mark and it changes rapidly right in front of you. But that's why this single shift in perspective changes everything. It's not about right now. You're doing this for the exponential growth to come. You're believing, you're laying the groundwork to what I call the overnight success period. When the world finally recognizes and goes, who is this? Wow, that was quick. But they have no idea about day 1 through 27. They don't know about the effort and the mental gymnastics. They don't know how many times you had to talk yourself out of quitting or out of rationalizing a day off. They just don't know the road you took to get there, and that's fine. In fact, that's the beauty of it all. You not only saw it first, but you brought something beautiful to life. By enduring turmoil, by navigating discomfort and chaos, you have become the maker of a new universe. Your universe. Because you stood there, because when others would have ran, turned back, you endured. Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change himself. This was written by Leo Tolstoy in reference to people's proclivity to point out at the world and project blame rather than to point in at themselves and ask, why? What can I do? How can I be better? Which, when you think about it, is basically a shark forfeiting its bite, right? Or a bird giving up its wings. Our personal agency is without a doubt our superpower. Yet, from my vantage point, sometimes feels like we're walking away from that superpower, a tiny step at a time. Little by little, day by day, we're allowing greatness to fade while bringing about the death of the hero. And well, that's a pretty big claim. What could I possibly mean by this? It's funny, when people ask me what I'm most proud of, my mind pretty quickly goes to my work, the brand that I've dedicated the last almost decade to building. But I don't think that's right. I think it's a product of my answer, but it's not my answer. What I'm most proud of is chipping away at the monster that is the victim mentality. My default when things went wrong for so long was to feel bad for myself. It was easier to be the victim and sulk than it was to keep taking the hits. It's like a cheat code. When you can just bask in your sorrow and hate the world, you don't have to do anything. It's like a giant ibuprofen for the discomfort that is life. But it relieves the symptom, not the cause. And to understand, to overcome this worldview is like being gifted with a new pair of eyes. And what I learned was that self-pity, it gets you nothing. It leaves you resentful, disappointed, envious, wandering down a path that is not your own. What I learned was that my story needed a hero. That's why as I grew, I spoke about the power and the beauty of doing the difficult thing. Running in the rain, chasing the metaphorical fireflies, taking the last train home. See, until you immerse yourself into that vast unknown, you stay in a cell of your own making. You build walls of limitation and you exist entirely within them. And as time has progressed, I look back, there are two things worth mentioning. One is that we find life's meaning in the difficult thing. And two, there is a fundamental misunderstanding, and even from time to time contempt, for what the difficult thing means, for those who speak of the difficult thing as though hard truths are in some way inconsiderate. Like diverging from the comfort of one's feelings implies a lack of empathy. But that's wrong. If you love someone, if you care about someone, if you care about yourself, you say what is true. And what is true is that the shelter and the temporary comfort of victimhood is a high not worth the withdrawal, not worth the suffering. It got me nowhere, it will get you nowhere, and that is a reality that will never cease to be true. We live in a world that's been shaped entirely by those who found the courage to do the difficult thing. Everything around us is a product of the courageous decision to take the now and bend it. And that means taking hits. It means being criticized. It means by definition you are choosing to be uncommon. You're choosing to change things, yourself, and by default the world around you. There's nothing wrong with being common. Quitting is relatable. Failure is relatable. Falling short is relatable. Because we're all human and we've all been there. But these stock features of humanity, they are not worth celebrating. We don't put on pedestals the familiar. No, we put on pedestals the times that we've reshaped the familiar. And a world of participation trophies is a world that has disincentivized that which makes life worth living. It cripples the very pursuit that ignites the soul, a push towards the extraordinary. It's time we resurrect the hero. See through the facade of short-term comfort that leads to long-term emptiness. In a world where attention is currency, it's time we acknowledge the payment we receive when we play victim buys only despair. Sure, we're flawed. That will always be true, but we are capable of manufacturing greatness. We're capable of capturing hearts and captivating minds. If you could only see within yourself that story unwritten. If you could feel the greatness that awaits, the roads to be traveled and mountains to be climbed, there would be no debate. There'd be no hesitation about that march to the belly of the beast. If only to show that our demons exist solely where we allow them to. Resurrect the hero. Fight those battles that light you up. Blaze your trail through the valley of darkness. Take that path unknown to the common man, unseen to those who live within the confines of what is. Resurrect that hero because you need you, because the world needs you. There's no time to be down or sad or dwell on the mistakes of yesterday. There's too much on the line to pretend that settling was the plan all along, or to point at the obstacles with disdain and hatred while life rotates around you. No, resurrect the hero. Resurrect your answer. Resurrect the person you were meant to be. It may not be simple or intuitive. It may cause you to give more than you knew you had. It may not be easy. But my friend, easy never changed the world. When it matters most. When the odds are against me, when precedent says no, there I will be. When the right path happens to be the lonely path, and victory is separated by a drop 1 million feet deep or a cliff 2 million feet high, there I will be. When they expect failure, anticipate defeat, celebrate each setback, there I will be, standing tall and ready. When there appears no way in, when my demons push me out, when my senses advocate retreat and the path forward is cloaked in doubt, there I will be, standing tall and ready. When I feel alone in my pursuit of tomorrow or tempted by the comfort of yesterday, when pride whispers of their relentless criticism and my legs cry out in exhaustion, there I will be, standing tall and ready. When hell rains down, when faith lets up, when my reason for beginning is replaced by a million little reminders of all that can go wrong, there I will be, standing tall and ready. When the sky looks like a ceiling, when the floor feels like home, when every light dims and every fear illuminates, when eyes roll and doors lock, when the sun submits, the clouds emerge, gravity flexes and my knees tremble, there I will be. Never will I back down, never will I cower or settle for the present when our future is limitless. I will get back up until I've made my point, won my battle, secured my fight. The world is simple, moving forward is not without its tests or lessons, but as long as I continue on, I evolve. With each step, I win. There's no running away or white flag or surrendering to the man in the mirror, the only conqueror capable of bringing me down. No, nothing will tell me what I can be. I will always be there, standing tall and ready, not because it's their will, but because each day is mine and not theirs. Look, I'm tired, I'm worn, but I'm here. And I'm ready for anything that waits ahead. Failure, by definition, a lack of success. The definition of success, the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. According to these very guidelines, failing is to be marching toward an end point and for one reason or another, not getting there. Is failure a possibility? Of course it is. There are no definites in life. But failure is also self-induced. It is not an outside occurrence. It's not a coin flip or an event that we helplessly watch unfold before us. It's not up to chance. Failure is a decision. The decision to end that same march that you once started. Just like putting on your shoes is a decision. Just like traveling or running or eating, these are decisions that we make. And when the word is all too frequently brought up in everyday conversation, what's evident is that there is a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to quote-unquote fail. It's spoken about as though it's something that's projected onto us, as though failure is an illness or catastrophic event, something that emerges and subdues its victims. And speaking of it in such a way misdiagnoses the problem. It's easy to say, so-and-so started a business and it failed. So-and-so didn't make the team, so they failed. But there's more here. One does not fail until they take a step back, look at the situation, and say that it's no longer worth it anymore. You don't fail until the moment you raise the white flag and say, I cannot do this. Because if you're out there, if you're changing, adapting, stretching yourself and your abilities, if you're seeking help, mentors, learning, growing, embracing the struggle, being relentless in your effort, no one can bring that word into the conversation. It cannot exist. If you are moving forward, you are not failing. You cannot be working towards something and failing at the same time. It is impossible. You can have your ups and downs. No one will refute that. You can get knocked on your ass, have moments of fear and doubt, but that is growth, not failure. Growth is taking the uncomfortable and adapting to it, overcoming the obstacles that inevitably get in your way. Failure, on the other hand, is deciding that growth is no longer worth the sweat. Because I'll tell you what, there's always a way to win, and I truly believe that. Sometimes the cost is extreme. Sometimes the price is more than everyone around you is willing to pay. But that's a conversation that you need to have with yourself. Just know that if you want it, somewhere there exists a solution. And knowing that is the beginning of greatness. It is the start of success. And as for that question, what if I fail? Here's some insight. That thought is wasted time and it is wasted energy, because as far as your goals go, you pull the strings. You are the writer, you are the director, and you are the actor. Failure only occurs when you write it into your script, when you choose it for an ending. And it is one ending, one of many. It is one approach of many. Once you've started that march towards what's important to you, do not let failure be the choice that you make. Choose growth. Choose the adventure. Choose the long way home. Victory over defeat, the uphill climb over regret. Choose to move forward when most wouldn't. It's the decision you'll always be thankful you made. Show them who you are. As Emerson said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. It is nothing short of courage. To walk into that dark cave that is your potential. To become a pioneer of uncharted worlds in search of who you might become. It is courage to leave what will be accepted for an idea that will certainly be misunderstood. At least initially. That means you're playing by new rules, using new metrics. Not the rubric that's already been handed out. No, anything but that. And that is the fundamental difference between those who create and those who react. Those who fight to discover who they are, and those who hide behind the mask of acceptance. It's courage. See, anyone can criticize. Anyone can condemn or tear down. But who's willing to run the gauntlet? Who's willing to subject themselves to that hell? Who wants something better so bad that they'd trade comfort and the reassurance of now for a life to ultimately be proud of? To be excited when the sun comes through the window and they jump out of bed in the morning. There are most definitely complexities in life, and we do our best to understand them, to navigate through them. But that question, that particular question in my mind will always be simple. Do you have the courage to show them who you are? To make that decision? Not reflect back their wishes and their reality like a mirror, but create your own. Harness it. Carry it up the mountain like a torch through the night. See, what I've come to understand is that knowing simply is not enough. Understanding is not enough. Replicating is not enough. What these things lack is you. And if I had to best represent this understanding, it would be like this, right? If you take a musician, a technically sound musician, she can play. A student of music, well, he can understand and recite. an expert in the craft, well, she can teach. But it's only someone who injects their authentic self into these abilities that can touch the hearts of people around them, change their lives, fill minds with wonder and awe. Because when you take a step back and really see what's going on, the songs that are sung, well, they're not sung because they are the most technical or most advanced, because they followed the rules. No, we sing them because they meant something when we heard them. Their authors had the courage to move a step beyond understanding and into the vulnerability that is self-discovery, that is creation. It is a microcosm of life. And in a world where comfort is not only pushed upon us, but it's the essence of what makes us human, saying no, well, it feels like running uphill. When you blend in, you can't be questioned. When you blend in, you rarely lose. When you blend in, there is no risk. But when you blend in, there is no you. And I'm not suggesting you missed the mark or you lost the battle. I'm suggesting that every once in a while, we need to be reminded that the journey has not even begun. That down the road, you'll see those people around you. They weren't so much concerned about you as they were themselves. That everyone is scared, everyone is unsure, no one knows or has the answer. But man, to see that, to feel that and move forward anyway, to know that you're worthy of a tomorrow greater than today, that is a courage rarely understood. And Emerson gives us, with that message, everything we need. The wisdom to know there's more, and most importantly, the courage to show yourself and the world who you are. If you're lucky enough to be different, don't let go. I spend a lot of my time and energy exploring the power of perspective, how our reality is determined by how we interpret what's in front of us. How one person can look at one thing and see pain or a problem or a barrier, and another person can look at that exact same thing and see opportunity or a future win or a bridge to something better. And I think one of the best examples of this is how we perceive those qualities that make us unique. Those things that put us in a different category. Maybe we're a little hesitant to fully embrace because they're not common. And when it comes to that which separates us from everyone else, well, I believe we have a decision to make. I'm going to go back to Robert Frost's fork in the road, right? He says, 2 paths diverged in a wood. I took the one least traveled by, and that made all the difference. On the surface, you could easily brush this off as trivial. It's like, oh, nice, that's cute. He took the path less traveled by. But what does that mean? As it turns out, it means a lot. It means instead of burying what makes him different, he made it his battle cry. Instead of slipping under the radar and sneaking through life like so many of us do, he signed the dotted line for the pain of being a beginner, the struggle of being uncertain, the discipline and sometimes torturous road that is turning a passion into excellence, trading peace of mind for the pursuit of meaning in life. Exploring what makes you unique, it takes courage. And in that message, he chooses courage. Because it's not just that you're alone, taking that path means every step of the way, your mind screams at you reminders that you're alone. It's not just fighting traffic patterns, it's fighting your DNA. It's resisting that impulse to please sit down, shut up, and blend in. So is it a trivial decision? I'd say not really. Maybe even the most important decision you can make. Because I promise you it's not your commonality with those around you that will bring fulfillment, that will leave a mark on your life and the world that surrounds you. No, it's that thing that's unequivocally you, that's a little out there, that's somewhat strange, that you don't know why, but its gravitational force pulls and pulls and pulls. A tug of war, where one side begs you to just relax, conform, do less, begs you to never be laughed at or criticized, to take the easy road. Then you have the other side, poking, prodding, asking you, hey, yeah, but what if? What if you sacrificed the comfort of right now? What if you explored? What if you took that which you love and you ran with it? What if you worked for a delayed payday? What if for a moment in time, when people ask you what the plan is, you have to look back and say, you know what, I'm not quite sure what I'm building, but I'll keep pivoting until it's so clear you can see it from the moon. Those are the paths that pull us apart. And every time I've lost my way, it's because I've doubted my unique path. And I mean that every time. It's when I become impatient with the journey or look around and see someone else winning in a different arena using different methods, different strategies, see the latest trends and success formulas. Hey man, I want part of that, right? I'm human. I want to win. I want to succeed. But just like a little opening is enough to let in the outside water that sinks the boat, well, a little bit of doubt is enough to derail your process. The process that you have to believe in, protect, nurture. A process that I've come to separate into two pieces. Number one, believing that the exploration of that thing that makes you unique, it's valuable. That your abilities mean something. They're not inconsequential. They're not stupid or trivial or unnecessary. If it means something to you, it will most certainly mean something to others. And you bringing it to life not only helps yourself evolve, grow, flourish, it helps the world. You just have to believe that enough to bring it to life. That's number one. Number two, trusting that as long as you don't stop in pursuit of your unique self, you can't lose. You can't lose. And I don't mean continuing to ram a square peg into a round hole. I mean growing, learning, experimenting, seeing what works. There's a saying that when you hit a dead end, it's not that the goal or the dream should be abandoned. It means the plan needs to be changed or adjusted. And as you get better and more experienced and continually work to adjust your strategy and your plans, learn from your mistakes, it becomes a matter of time. You increase the odds with every step forward. Being different is the most precious thing afforded to you. But to realize that miracle requires a combination of both the mythical and the practical, the imaginary and the real. Dream that dream, visualize that growth, create a world out of those ideas that don't exist yet. But also understand that the conversion process from dream to reality is a practical one. It requires repetition. Learning, losing, adjusting, and people don't like that. It's much easier to blend in than spend years pushing through the agony of setting yourself apart. but it's worth it. And the evidence is so obvious, so plainly pointing to the fact that we only celebrate the outcasts, the crazy ones. We sit around campfires, listen to lectures, watch movies and documentaries about the people that had every reason to doubt themselves but kept moving forward. About the people who could have swept their unique abilities under the rug, but instead used them as their foundation for everything. Not being distracted by what's popular or how anyone else lives or operates. Not seeking to be anyone but themselves, knowing that that is enough. Knowing it's the seed to something precious. The only question is, will you provide the right conditions and nourishment for that little seed to grow? Will you do what so few people have the courage to do? Let their authentic selves shine through. Let who they are emerge. Emerson has a quote. He says, "To be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." He goes on to say, "My life should be unique. It should be an alms, a battle, a conquest, a medicine." And see, perpetual happiness is a fool's errand. No, life is full of trials and tribulations and ups and downs. But fulfillment comes from that quest for meaning, for more, for building something, for creating your unique self, a process, a pursuit that must be chiseled from stone. It's never given or provided. It has to be found. Take it. And as Emerson beautifully implies, now is the time. The question is, what are you going to make with this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? What will you make of the possibilities that only you know, only you understand, that only you can bring to life? Never doubt yourself, or your gifts, or the things that set you apart. You don't need everyone else to believe in them. You just need to convince yourself. Everything else, it falls right into place. Came across a quote recently that said the road to success is dotted with many tempting parking spaces. And I thought this demonstrated or captured a realization that's pretty hard to articulate. And that is just how tempting it is to rationalize stopping or discontinuing your journey when life gets tough. How much sense it always makes to want to call it quits when things get uncomfortable. It's like, it's not just that doing something valuable is hard. It's that it's hard, and every 3 feet there's an invitation to not have to do it anymore. There's an endless supply of exit signs and escape routes. Therefore, accomplishing a goal is simultaneously saying yes to the challenging things while also saying no to the comfortable things. It's fighting off two demons at once. The good news, though, is that you were made to do just that. You just have to change the way you internalize the process. You have to change what you see along the way. I talk a lot about perfection as the enemy. And that's something I wholeheartedly believe to be true, but I generally talk about it in the context of perfection keeping us from starting, right? I try and unveil perfection as this defense mechanism that it truly is. Oh, things aren't perfect, I'll wait. Things aren't exactly where I want them to be, then I won't go. Emphasizing that it's in going that perfection is crafted. Like a statue being chiseled from stone. You fall, you get back up, and find that in doing so, you end up with a little more clarity than you had when you started. You let the trials and tribulations of the journey refine the product. And so that's the beginning, right? That's finding the courage to start, removing the idea of perfect when really it's just our fears masked. But what about when you've already started? What about when you're underway, when you're in the midst of those trials and tribulations? Because we all know this. When you're in pain, your body wants one thing: to remove yourself from the pain. When things are uncomfortable, your default is to seek out those aforementioned parking spaces. Reprieve from the grasp of the unknown. Things aren't perfect, then I'm done here. Things feel awkward or uncomfortable or unclear, then why bother? What I want to do right now is make the argument that it's most important to continue forward when we're in these moments. It's most critical to move forward when the road is unclear and those tempting parking spaces start revealing themselves. Things are not perfect, maybe even far from perfect. And this is right about the time when we forget why we started. I've run into this in my past, right? Particularly with injuries. There was a period in my not too distant past when my ankle and shoulder were simultaneously messed up, right? So couldn't run, couldn't really do any upper body work. My physical activity really took a dive, right? So I'm a little discouraged. And sure enough, I found the eat whatever you want parking space. It's like, who cares? You're not working out. What's the point? Just focus on the business. Put a pause on all that stuff. And then eating whatever I wanted became, well, what's the point of getting up at 5 when I could just get up at 7? I sleep 2 hours longer is how I rationalized it. It's not like I'm going to be running. And then there goes some very important alone time, thinking time, and you can see how easily the wheels sort of fall off the wagon. Not because you're a bad person or don't want the result, but because the second things stop being perfect or working the way I wanted them to, I found a parking space. There will be few stretches of time in life when everything's perfect. Things going exactly how you want them to. It will simply be the exception, not the rule. And then the question becomes, can you put your head down and continue forward, knowing that life will call for adaptation and adjustment? But that those tempting exit signs are not for you. They are weakness. They are for those who forget their strength and their courage. I mentioned a little while ago that growth is fighting two demons. Saying yes to the mountain ahead and no to the off-ramps. But when you step back and look at things different, you change the dynamic. You put the odds in your favor. When the off-ramps become reminders of your strength as you pass them one by one, indicators of your commitment to move forward. And when the mountain ahead becomes merely the way, not some giant sacrifice or monster, but merely a path, things simplify in a way that empowers you on your mission. There is no perfect or imperfect. There is adjusting when necessary and taking the next little step along the way. And using the previous example, it's like I'm injured, okay? This will definitely be a time for adjustment. Maybe it's yoga, stretching, practicing being more patient, maybe greater emphasis on meditation, mental strength, whatever it is, but we don't stop. We continue stepping forward. The next step will look a little different, but that's all. If perfect is a standard one seeking to maintain, They'll always be pulling over. They'll always be backing off, because very rarely do we have stretches of perfection. Life is an adjustment game, not a perfection game. Life asks, what can you do when your hands are tied behind your back? What can you do when you're tired? What can you do when you've just endured loss, when your pride hurts, your plans fail? And trust me, that's when you see all those off-ramps. That's when something in the back of your mind says, hey, all this goes away if you just throw in the towel. Just go seek perfection somewhere else. You'll find it there. But you can chase that rabbit down a million paths. There is no perfection waiting for you, and there is no flawless pursuit. Life comes down to, what will you do now? Where you are, with what you have, can you find a way to win when it hurts? Look, we all need to understand that life is innately difficult. And success calls for a simplification that is adapting and stepping forward. That's all. Things are hard, you step. Things don't go as you planned, you adapt and you step. But you are always moving towards that North Star, whatever it is for you. It's deeming those parking spaces insignificant with regard to your life and your journey. Quitting is not brought about by the external world. No, failure is a decision. Failure is saying, you know what, this costs more effort than I'm willing to pay. Those parking spaces have become more tempting than the top of this mountain. Failure is a choice. And so, for one to succeed, they must simply stay in motion. Choose adaptation over a self-imposed end. Yeah, enjoy those moments of perfection, the times the stars do align. But see them as the exception, not the rule. We are not defined when things are great. We are defined by our ability to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward when they're not. Our lives are shaped by the exits we don't take, the parking spaces we don't even notice as we ascend the mountain that is life. Because anything other than the road ahead was never an option. You didn't succeed because things were perfect. You succeeded because you found a way to win when they weren't. I woke up, put my coffee on the desk, opened my laptop, stared at a blank screen, and a little button popped up in the top right corner. Check for updates. Nope. Ask me again later. Why? Why not now? I don't know. I don't necessarily care about the improvements. I guess it's just inconvenient. It can wait. And that's kind of it. Let's face it, the laptop doesn't matter. The update in this scenario is not important. But bear with me, because I think what it stands for, and when you apply it to the big picture, does matter. Our proclivity to take less because less is convenient. Our predisposition to sell ourselves short because it's safer to leave so much of ourselves on the shelf. Because, well, things don't break when they're on the shelf. But you can't be both flawless and live your life. Because life comes with wear and tear. The value is the experience. And a flawless existence is void of experience, of stories, of adventure. There's a little parable about two seeds being planted. And one of them just wants to grow, wants to feel what the sun is like, wants to see how high she can get, experience the breeze, the cool air. And so she grew. And sure, she dealt with hard days. She had her difficult times, but ultimately grew to live her best life. The other seed worried. Worried about leaving her home, the world that was the ground around her, worried about damaging her roots, worried about what could be waiting for her in the dark, about the sun being too hot and the breeze too strong. And ultimately stayed right where she was, playing it safe until one morning a chicken came wandering by and ate the seed off the ground. And see, this spells out a few things. One, we can at any moment decide to step into that next level, evolve into that next chapter. But also, not doing so comes with a cost. Sometimes a hidden cost. There's a tendency to think that preserving the status quo, because it's safe, is valuable. But understand something, you are not a collector's item. You weren't made for preservation, you were made for growth. To expand, to reach out towards the heavens and feel that sun, that breeze. And sure, upgrading means vulnerability. It means accepting that the unknown is bigger than you, but also contains within it everything you need. Whether it was people, things, money, resources, I used to think like that seed, right? How can I hold on to what I have? Contain, play small. I can't lose this. I've come too far. I've worked too hard. What if everything goes wrong? I can't upgrade now. Maybe later. Maybe someday when the time is right. When it won't hurt or require that I step outside of this little world I've created. But guess what? Growth always asks of us that we leave the comfort of now. It always offers us the world in exchange for the courage to see the unseen and trust ourselves to bring it to life. And when I realized this, I saw how the act of trying to perpetually maintain the status quo is debilitating. It's looking at life through a lens of scarcity. It's only when you start to grasp how abundant life is that you realize by simply stepping into that person you are destined to be, you'll attract what matters. Some things will go, and you'll leave them behind. But those things no longer serve you. They played their part, they added their value, and are now merely stepping stones as you move to something greater, and that's just it. Sometimes living means wishing you did things differently, looking back and acknowledging that you need to be better. Sometimes living means losing the wrong people in your life to make space for the right ones. Sometimes it means spending days, months, even years wandering down the wrong path so that you can get a glimpse, so that you can realize what the right path looks like. Sometimes it means no reward, no validation until that compounding finally takes place. Finally, you see just how powerful those small steps were and will always be. It means seeing yourself as the person you know you can be. Maybe not necessarily the one you are today, but betting on yourself when no one else would. There's an idea that people are neither good nor evil, but they have both within them. They choose through their day-to-day action how they'll live, who they'll be. And sure, this is a tad oversimplified, but I think the duality is useful, right? Because in a different context, for everything that occurs in your life, you can find a reason to celebrate or a reason to grieve, a reason to grow or a reason to hide. It all comes down to what one chooses to see, how they choose to look at the world. I'll never forget when Peterson talked about curtains, right, with tears or holes in them, same world on the other side, but the opening that you choose to look through paints an entirely different picture, right, contributes to an entirely different understanding. And look, I'm a pragmatist, I just am. I'd never ask people to close their eyes and pretend everything's perfect, to wander down the path before you expecting everything to be easy. No, but what I am saying is that the path before you is where you'll uncover the meaning in life, and meaning requires that we are from time to time uncomfortable. To go where we most want to go, we must leave something behind. And the reality is that while it's scary, while it can be alarming and even painful, it is always worth it. That what's on the other side is what makes life worth living. I want you to know that you don't need to be walking into the same rooms, talking to the same people, doing the same things. No, not if you've outgrown that reality. Not if you're ready for the next chapter. So let's make a pact to view life not as an obligation, but as an opportunity. Something challenging but beautiful, mysterious but plentiful. Let's view the challenges along the way not as something going wrong or some kind of alarm, but rather an indication that you are doing something right, that you're stepping into the controlled chaos of your day-to-day, finding the courage to meet new people, try new things, take risks, evolve. This is what life is about. And if you can find it within yourself to see it that way, to be grateful for the discomfort that makes its way in and out of our lives, you'll know that you are evolving, reaching towards that sky. Because the danger, as far as I'm concerned, is never what happens along the way. It's what doesn't happen, because we never let ourselves accept what the world had to offer. And so on that note, I think today is the perfect day to upgrade. What's one thing I wish I knew when I was younger that I think people could benefit from today? What single piece of information could have the biggest impact? And I spent some time thinking about this question, and the more I think about it, the more the answer becomes incredibly apparent. It's that you are in control of your own life, your own destiny, your own future. And when you take accountability for yourself, life changes. Period. And if you thought that was obvious, I would advocate taking a look around. Maybe a stroll through social media, the Twitters and Instagrams and TikToks of today. And no, that's not the real world, but it's certainly a microcosm of the real world. What do you see? Well, you see chronic blame. I don't like where I'm at or things are, so that must be your fault or their fault or someone else's fault. You see people looking everywhere but in the mirror, actually seeking out victimhood, because that's what brings the attention. That's today's currency. It's much easier to be the victim than the hero, because being the hero means you have to sacrifice something. It's people saying the news or some institution or the federal government is the problem. And if those things would only change, then we'd be good. Let me explain why I think this mentality is self-sabotage, and why I would take younger me by the hand and I would say, listen to what I'm about to tell you. Where you start is often outside of our control. Let's be real, life is not fair. We don't all get dealt the same hand. But this next part, as I once heard Will Smith articulate beautifully, is the same for everyone. What you decide to do about it right now is what matters. And that is the control that we all have. It's not your fault where you start, but it's your responsibility to choose where you end up. You can shake your fist at the sky, or you can start building a life that matters to you. It's easy to blame the world, to be the victim, at least in the short term. But a fulfilling life is about meaning, about fighting for something valuable, about evolving into the version of yourself that you always knew in your heart you could be. You just had to unlock. See, no one down the road was ever happy with themselves for blaming the world while they bitterly remained stagnant. I would say to a younger me, worry less about how you're perceived and think more about who you are, what you're capable of, because that you can always control. Stop losing yourself in the news or whatever the narrative of the day is. That has nothing to do with your progression, has nothing to do with your very next step. So sure, be informed, but do more, consume less. Because by and large, it's a distraction. And I would say the government, which has become the crux of our discourse today, transforming into a modern day religion. Look, the government's job is not to give you anything. It's there to protect what's inherent to you already. Your right to live life on your terms. See, satisfaction, it will come from good habits. It will come from self-belief. It will come from taking risks and failing and learning. It will come from the courage to step out into a world that's completely unknown. It will never come from a self-interested politician or body in Washington, red or blue. So stop whining about political optics and focus on where your 2 feet are taking you right now. Because I promise, in the grand scheme of things, that's what matters. That is your strength. Expecting someone else to come along and change your life is like screaming into an abyss. I would say to my younger self, when you start looking around and seeing what everyone else has, and beating yourself up for not being as good or feeling like you're behind, look, it's great that their success motivates you, but dwelling on it won't make your life better. Life is a race between you and you. It's a fight between yourself and those thoughts that constantly knock on the door, looking to settle into your psyche. If you defeat that demon, you'll be where you want to be, regardless of where others are. You're right where you need to be, so keep your head up and keep moving forward. I'd explain that to become something more, to change, requires a sacrifice that feels so substantial, so big at first, that it bullies most people into staying right where they are. That to become something new, you have to learn to play the fool, to get humbled. You have to change your relationship with short-term failure. And that's not easy. But taking control of your life is not supposed to be easy. Only worth it. They're different. And I can certainly look back at my own life, think about the times where I was so busy pointing out that I didn't even think to point the finger at myself. I was so worried about life being unfair that I existed in this temporary state of paralysis, the whole time not knowing that I could have been stepping forward. Could have been tapping into the single greatest power I possess, control over my own life. See, every time you feel anger or the need to blame those around you, you're taking the spotlight off of what matters and placing it on things detrimental to where you want to be, to your journey and your future. Even the most unjust, arbitrary things. Let's say you didn't get that promotion you were beyond qualified for, or you were mistreated by someone, or things didn't go the way you wanted them to. You can fill in that blank, but refusing to blame others and immediately taking responsibility, again, even in a situation like that, it gives you one of the greatest advantages in life. It gives you that gift of control. You can now assess the situation. You can now ask yourself, hey, what can I do to change this? You can delve into the why, find the lessons and the value. You can come back and reapproach this thing stronger. Because to blame others, to take on that role of victim, it's essentially living life in the passenger seat. It might be easier. Might be less work, less responsibility, but what you never have is control over where that car goes. But when you own it, when you say, hey, maybe it's not my fault, but look, it's mine now. It's my responsibility, the good, the bad, every aspect of my life. It puts you in position to change things, to take the wheel and reroute to a destination of your choosing. So that would be my message to the world. I know it's not an easy road. I know life is unfair. I know things aren't perfect, but the best thing you can ever do for yourself is say, you know what? This is mine to own. And I'm going to look around for that light switch that will create momentum. That little decision that will get the ball rolling. I'm not going to sit back, shake my fist, and blame life. I'm going to walk out that door and create life. That's where you'll find what you're truly looking for. Human beings are the only life form that will do less than they possibly can. I want to dive into why. The other night I was walking the mountain trails here in Scottsdale, chasing a glimpse of the full moon. And as I moved along the path, something caught my eye. Just off trail, a cactus, one of many. This one sort of oddly shaped and leaning onto the path. Still unmoving, glowing in the moonlight like it had been planted there on purpose, like it belonged exactly where it was. A miracle of a thing, really. Thrives on almost nothing. Very little rain, no softness, no luxury, just grit. Grit in adaptation. And I actually stood there a little longer than I expected to because something about it felt familiar, something resonated. Reasons I didn't really understand in the moment, it pulled me backwards, all the way to Florida. That feeling, hey, I traded palm trees for cacti. My mind went to the palm tree bending in the hurricane winds. Surviving not by toughness, but by surrender. Totally different world over there. Palm trees know when to yield. They learn the rhythm of the storm. They bend so far it looks like breaking, but somehow it never does. Two completely different environments. Two completely different survival strategies. Both beautiful. Both necessary. And somewhere between that cactus and those palm trees, I realized humans are the only creatures on Earth that can adapt to environments that slowly destroy them and call it normal. A cactus in a swamp would rot. A palm tree left alone in the desert without irrigation would dehydrate and starve. No, they couldn't debate it or rationalize it. They wouldn't try and tough it out. But I think their biological components would figure out pretty quickly this is not where I'm meant to grow. But people, we stay. We adapt until we forget we're adapting. And the irony is, we are the only ones who can stand up, pack our things, and walk away. Still, we don't. We bend for approval. We dry out in love that never waters us. We sit in jobs that hollow us out slowly, quietly, 1 year at a time. We fold ourselves smaller to fit inside rooms we've already spiritually outgrown. We survive in places our souls were never meant to live. And then we call it strength. Because we've gotten so good at enduring what we were never meant to accept. But I don't think strength is just endurance. Strength isn't just surviving. Strength isn't white-knuckling your way through a life that feels wrong in your body. Strength is choosing the right environment. Strength is knowing when your soul is in drought. Strength is realizing you've been bending so long you don't remember what standing tall feels like. Strength is recognizing when you've adapted out of habit, not alignment. Because here's the truth most of us don't want to face. Some of us are not broken, we're just planted in the wrong soil. Some of us don't need more discipline per se, or motivation, or another pep talk. We need a change of environment. And we can gift ourselves that any moment of any day. And that cactus reiterated that night. Life can thrive in the harshest conditions, but only when it's in the environment it was designed for. The palm tree taught me something too. Flexibility is wisdom, but only in winds it's meant to withstand. And somewhere on that trail, moon rising, desert quiet, settling back in, I realized something important. This year wasn't just about what I survived, it was about learning where I actually thrive. And maybe that's the invitation for all of us as the year comes to a close. Look honestly at the places where you've been merely surviving. Look at the environments you've contorted yourself to fit into, the relationships that require you to shrink, the routines that drain you, the expectations that feel heavier every time you pick them up. Look at the roles that ask you to bend so far you're starting to crack. And ask yourself the questions that change everything. Is this my desert or just my drought? Is this my storm or just my surrender? Because you don't have to thrive everywhere. In fact, you're not meant to. You're not weak for outgrowing places. You're not selfish for choosing alignment. You're not failing because something that once fit no longer does. You're meant to find where your roots go deep, where you're nourished, where you can grow tall without apologizing for the space you take up. You're meant for an environment that brings you back to life. One that reminds you of your potential. One that doesn't just keep you alive, but makes you magnificent. Never forget the difference between you and a tree is that you can move. You can find that place that lights you up.